To hit a shot like this, what are we doing? Our eyes tell us where the target is relative to our crosshair, and then with good technique, our mouse hand flicks to the targets and boom. Simple. But there's something we may be overlooking. We're using hand-eye coordination to make the shot, and we are training this all the time in game. But what if we're able to improve the performance of our vision? What if we're able to react more quickly because we can process the visual data more efficiently? In traditional sports, they treat this question seriously. And to have a vision coach is standard practice at the pro level. It helps with all kinds of things like eye tracking, visual endurance, reaction time, and a lot more. For example, in baseball, the batter has to have inhuman reaction times to hit a fastball that's typically traveling at 95 miles per hour. They must rely on processing the pitcher's throw type as he's winding up, and with that information, the batter can anticipate the most likely outcome, in this case a fastball, which allows him to begin reacting before the ball leaves the pitcher's hand, giving enough time to strike it correctly. All of this wouldn't be possible if the batter was unable to read the pitcher's movement. In FPS games, we call this skill movement reading, and in this video we'll focus on how we understand and train the visual part of this skill. In the context of vision coaching, movement reading is a blend of three separate elements. Dynamic visual acuity, our ability to see an object in motion in crisp detail instead of a blurry mess. This enables us to maintain focus and visual clarity to see the details like the player model slowing down or the animation lean. Game knowledge tells us that the player model slowing down or the animation lean indicates directional change, telling us that we need to decelerate our mouse or readjust our crosshair. And then finally, motor adjustment. So having the mouse control to adjust accurately as we need to for continued shots to connect. Oftentimes I notice players, myself included, struggle most when there are no context clues like objectives or cover positions that may provide us the tell as to when the player will change dodging direction. Often we'll just guess instead and it can result in missing completely. Recently on my podcast, Minigod demonstrated how even someone as good as Kyosuke can make this kind of error. Instead of using the visual cues to adjust his aim, Kyosuke guesses that Donk will stop and starts shooting at that point instead.
And during this adjustment, you can notice like a specific moment when he like stops moving his cursor because he assumed the guy will stop moving. And in this case, like you can see he stopped his tracking at this point because he thought, okay, like based on my knowledge and my historical context that I have from the game, I know that players should stop and try to shoot at me in this particular moment. So he started predicting what the guy will do, right? And that's when we can see the error in the aiming, because at this point when we lift our initial preparation, we should actively switch to some of the aiming habits we train in aim trainers right now.
So why is it so hard to master this skill? Why is this mistake the one Minigod named as the most common in the pro population? It can come down to a lot of things, but in this video we are focused on the visual part of the movement reading. But can we even train the dynamic visual acuity? In sports they do it often, and the most effective method they have found for this is called stroboscopic training. It works by interrupting your vision with flashing patterns, which trains your brain to process visual information more efficiently. Strobing rewires visual and motor neural pathways, making them more efficient. So in basic terms, our brain adapts to less input, so when we're back in normal conditions, it feels easy. A 2015 Frontiers in Psychology study found strobe drills cut reaction times by 10 to 15% by shortening visual processing windows. Additionally, a 2011 Duke University study showed strobe training improved motion detection by 20% by forcing the brain to adapt to intermittent visuals, enhancing dynamic visual acuity. So this is all well and good, but drilling this approach isn't possible without a strobing effect, which you'll need stroboscopic glasses for. These specialized glasses are available on Amazon, but I'm sure most people wouldn't be willing to spend $90 on something like this. But if you do, let me know how it goes. I will also be trying this in the future. The cool thing about aim training is we're actually practicing this skill passively already with a lot of the tracking tasks where we challenge our gaze by focusing continually on the bot in evasive or control type scenarios. Given you'll frequently be tracking bots that move much quicker than the opponents you'll be facing in game, this is great training for our vision. If you want to isolate this, try one of the tasks as you normally would, except don't shoot at the bot for the first couple minutes. Just focus on tracking it as clearly as possible with your vision alone. Another approach you can experiment with is to watch VODs that are sped up, making sure to focus on targets that appear and track them with your eyes as you would if you were playing. With all this said, fixing the mistake Minigod describes requires a lot of applied practice. This is practice where we place ourselves into the situation as much as we can and execute the correction. A lot of players will use death matches to try to achieve this, or even just scrims or face-it games. And it's not as simple as just isolating our vision. The same way we would never say that just isolating flicking in an aim trainer will make you a better player. Think of it like this. Training one skill in isolation is like taking a single cog out of a machine. You can polish it and perfect it on its own, but by itself it's just a cog, useless without the rest. For it to matter, you have to fit it back into the machine where it works together with all the other cogs. That's how our mechanics function. They're not just one piece, but a system of many parts that only makes sense when combined. How this looks in training is to have some training that isolates vision skills. Then we focus on not predicting our opponents when we're aiming at them, but getting used to anticipating and reacting instead. Personally, I found that in addition to applied practice in game, evasive tracking or switching tasks in aim trainers help a lot with this, as you're actively punished for predicting and you have to remain in a reactive state the entire time, paying close attention to when the bot's speed changes or the movement direction changes. Another skill that's beneficial to us in esports is visual attention and endurance. When too much is happening on screen and we can't follow it comfortably, we can get overwhelmed and tense up. But if we're able to comfortably handle high amounts of targets at once, we can stay chill and aim more effectively. We can drill this with multiple object tracking. MOT helps your ability to juggle several targets or enemies or objects at once while keeping that spatial awareness sharp. And to drill this skill, grab Kovacs or AimLabs and pick a dynamic clicking task like some version of Passu. First, our visual tracking phase, where we will focus on all targets at once for a couple of minutes. This will help with the attention capacity. Second, start trying to click on the targets one at a time whilst continuing to prioritize tracking as many targets as possible. As comfort improves, try to increase your speed between target switching, but do your best to maintain attention on the whole screen. And if you find that there's not enough objects on screen that it feels easy, find a task that has an increased number of objects for you to track. There's a lot more practical applications of vision training that can help us, but there are some limitations. In sports, where they use vision training a lot, they aren't looking through a 2D screen. They are in a fully 3D environment. In esports, our eyes are at a fixed distance from the screen and field of view is limited by the monitor. This does mean certain categories of visual skills aren't as useful to train as they would be in traditional sports. Things like depth perception, convergence, accommodation, and much more. However, I think that there's a lot to vision training that is unexplored in esports, and I want to go deeper to bring you all the most insights I possibly can. To this effect, I'm currently testing Visual Edge's Vision 6-week training program to see if it helps my performance. I'll be training categories that in theory aren't directly helpful to esports to see if there's a difference. I'll report back and let you guys know how it goes. Love my content? Join my Patreon for exclusive extended podcasts, behind the scenes videos, weekly performance tips, and more. Check the description to support me and level up your experience. I hope you enjoyed this content. Stay tuned for more on aim and FPS gaming performance. I'll see you next time.